Hello and welcome to another review for All That Film. Today we're doing things a little different. So if you're new, normally you're not seeing a face in a Pickle Rick shirt. Had to wear it to prove I'm a true fan. But yeah, we're going to be reviewing Rick and Morty. Normally I have visuals going on in the background. Not this time, just because couldn't get around to downloading all these clips of what I would need to talk about this season. So I'll get right into it. I actually enjoyed season 4 of Rick and Morty. I've seen a lot of people on Reddit, Twitter, whatever it be, that have said Rick and Morty season 4 is trash. And I don't really get where they're coming from. And that's not to say, like, I'm right and you're wrong. I just mean, at a certain point, like, the show's not bad. You're just putting too high of expectations almost on it. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with that. If you guys want a serious story-driven show, then yeah, you can probably seek that somewhere else. And that's not really what Rick and Morty is concerning itself with. I know that might be like some of a complaint for seasons 3 and 4 that some people have pointed out, because both seasons 1 and 2 have like those sprinkles in where they have important moments in the show that actually progress the characters, which I think happens here as well. So I don't know if this, again, I don't know the universal thought on season 4 as a whole, because some of the episodes towards the end maybe won people over, and I'll talk about separate episodes. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen Rick and Morty at all, maybe check it out. You might like it. I will say the first episode's not great. It very much leans into like the basic understanding of who Rick and who Morty are. And it's very elementary in that regard. It's very one note. Oh, you got this drunk grandfather and this little shy kid. And at this point, I think they've made like a really interesting comedy. And maybe I could be wrong. In a couple of seasons, I will eat crow if I'm wrong on this. And if it turns out like this was them leading towards like a Family Guy or Simpsons-esque turn, which I think will never happen to Rick and Morty. As much as people want to say the show has gotten bad, I don't think it's really taken like a huge misstep as much as people would like to think. That's not to say criticisms aren't wrong. I definitely understand like where people are coming from when they bring up stuff. But for the most part, I think a lot of the episodes are fun. I think the part that annoys people is how this was released. We were given 4 episodes, and then they just went on hiatus for a little bit, which is crazy. But I'm not gonna lie, it kind of worked out for me, in the sense that like I had a show that I could watch in May. That was really nice, because there's not, movies that are coming out all the time, and even like Solar Opposites in some ways scratches the Rick and Morty itch, but it's still, like I mentioned in that review, it's still not completely the same. But yeah, no, there's a lot of really good stuff here. If you're a fan and for whatever reason have not gone into season 4 of Rick and Morty, definitely do that. There's some key highlights, some of the good episodes that the vast majority of people really like. But yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and get into it and going over each episode. If you haven't seen anything, this is kind of spoiler-esque in that like I'm just going to talk thoughts on each episode and sort of go through highs and lows and what the fans think overall and what sort of I think on top of that. So yeah, I'll get right into that. So here's the thing with some of these. I will have some disagreements, and I think we need to contextualize some of these ratings. Fans typically rate episodes they really like very highly. So even going to like season 2 and going to the end, there's several episodes that have like a 9.4, 9.3, 9.6. There's some high episodes is my point. You don't typically see that with movies or even TV shows. I know they do tend to be up there higher in ratings than film. just because people are closer to them. But typically, newer episodes are going to be rated highly because it's only fans that are watching it. So just keep that in mind when I say I disagree with a couple of these things, or if I do agree with this in different ways. But the first one was Edge of to Morty, Rick Die, Rick Pete, which I thought was a really fun episode. It just brought back the fun of the series. There's this little crystal that Morty can see how he dies, so he's constantly making these decisions to get to that end goal. And yeah, it just plays around with that Rick and Morty formula. And I know a couple people were like, season 3 was meh, so it's got to start with a bang. And I think most people are pleased by this. I will admit, the second episode, I don't hold as one of the best. I think it's just more like a standard Rick and Morty episode. I thought the B plot was actually, or whatever you consider the B plot, I guess. I thought Rick's storyline in this was interesting, but I wasn't as engaged as I thought I would be, if that makes sense. Whereas I was having some fun with Jerry and Morty making an app with Taika Waititi. And maybe it's just because I really like the voice of Taika Waititi. But yeah, so that episode was, again, off to a good start, really solid. And then I actually missed this episode live. And a ton of people, I know this had like the memeing of Morty in this. The one crew over the crew Morty. These are going to be hard to read. But this episode was fun. Again, sort of standard. But it just has like nice heist elements. It really... I've said this about, and tons of other people have said this before, you really have to have an appreciation of a certain genre if you're willing to spoof it and parody it, and that's very clear with Harmon and Roiland here. They understand what a heist film is, what the beats are, and they really work in that universe well. I would probably rate it a little bit higher for what this is, just because with some of the ratings coming up, because I did like this episode a lot. But keep in mind, I really love heist movies as well, so that could definitely be a factor. Then on top of that, the fourth episode, Claw and Hoarder Special Rickdoms Morty. Yeah, this episode wasn't good, and the fans also rated it pretty low. The talking cat story was alright. Honestly, the dragon was cool at first, but then when again, slight spoilers if you haven't watched yet, but the dragon bit was cool, but then it wasn't, in that because Harmon has such a lot of his roots are in D&D, you'd expect a quest-like episode to be amazing. And when they get to that quest, there's some choices they make, and the whole dragon bonding stuff is bizarre. But there's some choices they make that I don't particularly love. I don't think they should have gone that way, but more power to them. But yeah, most people agree not the best episode, which is okay. There's some duds every now and then. But then after that, there's Rattlestar Rick Lactica, which I thought was a really solid episode. However, I probably wouldn't have it as high as the IMDb consensus has it. It's fun. Like, it's alright. I think people just like when they make a really fleshed out world. And that's what they do with the Snake world. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's what people are leaning to. I don't think I was feeling that in the moment, if that makes sense. So I was like, oh, they're doing this thing again. And the whole, I will admit, the whole Jerry thing was fun. But this next one is actually where I really was on board with the season. And comparatively to some of these other episodes, it's not rated like the highest. I actually love Never Rick and Morty. And I don't know what... I'm not going to lie. I didn't know what specifically. I knew it was being very fourth wall breaky. And And I like that. I like that the series is sort of acknowledging its pitfalls. I will say, personally, I think a lot of my appreciation of this episode came after watching the video that Matt Pat has on this episode, because I feel like that's just a really good dive into why they made specific decisions, what they mean. And there was a lot of stuff that I specifically missed. And yeah, I don't know. I just think that's a very creative episode while also being while also acknowledging everything that has happened with this series and the problem with trying to handle all these different people when it comes to making a TV series. And I do understand if that maybe was annoying to people, was too fourth wall-y. I don't know what the reviews are on it. I guess I can pop that up, because maybe there's a couple people that are negative, when in actuality a couple people are fairly positive. I don't even know if mixed feelings. 8 out of 10. Yeah. So what's weird about IMDb sometimes is the highest ratings are towards the top as like the most helpful. So it doesn't really. And I'm not saying, I would agree with these people, but I just mean there's usually not, 3 out of 10 trying so hard. And here's the people that don't like this. Painful. Ouch. But yeah, no, I get if you didn't like this. I think it's really fun. It's Harmon and Roiland stretching their creative sensibilities. Then after that, again, another pretty standard episode. Prometheus. It's fun. It's all right. It's not something that I'll harp home to and tell anyone oh, you have to see this Rick and Morty episode. And then after that, this is the one that I sort of agree with or disagree with people on in a negative way. I do not understand why the Vat of Acid episode is regarded so highly. I think it was fun. I think it was all right. But I don't walk away with that episode being like, oh, this is one of the best Rick and Morty episodes in the series. And a bunch of other people do, and I get it. There's solid jokes, and maybe it's because it's not taking itself too seriously, and it's really returning to that fun adventures of both Rick and Morty. So maybe that's what people really like about it. So I don't want to discredit that or anything. I just mean I sort of went into that episode, unfortunately, and this could possibly be part of why I think this now. But I went into that episode hearing people say, Rick and Morty is back, baby. And I was like, whoa, I feel like Rick and Morty's been back. So yeah, that was interesting. Again, I think it's fun. There's really good jokes in it. It's a funny episode, but it's not the one that's yes, this is it, baby. But honestly, I think it matches up with a couple other episodes that have been rated highly in the past. These last two I really liked, even maybe more so. Honestly, the last 3 in general are really solid. Again, I think the whole season's pretty good. I guess that's semi-controversial depending on who you ask. But the Childrick of the Mort I thought was really fun. It was cool seeing Rick and his daughter Beth hanging out, just being with each other. That was nice. And then of course Jerry. I honestly forget what they're called, but the little Rick-like aliens, doughboys or whatever they are. That was pretty fun. Summer and Morty doing their thing by themselves. It has an ABC plot line. They're all fun. I enjoyed them all. And I think it does set up things pretty well for the next episode. In Star Mort Return of the Jerry. Which, okay, again, I don't know if I would rate it this high. And one of the things you do have to remember is these are ratings from the 31st and 17th of May. So it has not been a while. Even Rattlestar Rick Lactica came out in December. So it's been a while for people to rate it more like closer to what they think. So in fairness, like just to give a little bit of fairness to this, it might just be high because they just came out a little bit, and these things tend to like equalize more. So maybe like the 8.2s and 8s will go to like 8.3 or whatever. But yeah, no, I really like this episode. I think the two summers, no, sorry, not the two summers. I think the two Beths hanging out was a really cool introduction. And then sort of being like, oh, well, we don't care, which one of us is real. Like you don't have that power over us anymore. I thought was a neat introduction. And I think there's, again, some cool stuff with Rick and Summer. I do wonder if that's sort of going to be addressed, because Summer's become a more integral character to the Rick, Morty, and sometimes Summer type stuff, or it's just, Morty and Summer. I do find that interesting. But yeah, no, it's really solid. The only thing is, I don't particularly love the fights in Rick and Morty, and there's a big one in this, and I understand, if people really like that, more power to them. I just can't help see the Family Guy chicken fight in this a little bit, and it's still fun, it's still creative, so I'll definitely give them that. They use all the different tools from this. They use really well. They use all the characters as best as they can. No character sort of goes unused out of the core 5. But yeah, it was a good conclusion to season 4. So overall, yeah, I really like this season. If you want to share your favorite thoughts down below, feel free to do so. And just share thoughts, favorite episode, favorite moment, whatever you want. If you didn't like the season, feel free to share it down below. I usually respond to comments. Thank you guys for checking out this review. See ya.